In 1957, I was still a schoolboy, and I went to High School Mall, which is a very famous school in Johor. We had school talent times those days, and I represented the hostel singing a song by Bobby Helms called Fraulein, and I won a second place.
My aunties used to play this gramophone, you wind it up, and then the song was going on, Kesara, Kesara, whatever will be, will be. And then I was wondering, I was 5 years old then, and before I worked out with the problem. My problem was, how did they sing? Who was singing from the gramophone? I was 5 years old, so I went behind the gramophone, and I saw all this, it's a wall set, all these valves standing up lit up, and I was convinced that musicians of a special, specially made by God, you know, they look like lit up tubes, you know. So I thought, oh, this is how they sing. These are the people who are singers, you know. But at the age of 8, I remember I worked it out that it was actually electronics.
The music scene was either in the form of Malay bands performing in kampongs and weddings, and that's where most of the Malays were at that point in time. And in the towns, they had dance halls where they had cabaret bands. You buy a coupon, you give it to the girl, and then you get to dance with her. So that was the music scene. In places like Penang and Kuala Lumpur, they were a bit ahead in the sense that they had jazz combos and little bands and Hawaiian bands and so on and so forth.
The music scene in 1957 was not so wondrous for me because I was living in the Kampong Mall, on the Kampong side in Bangi. The bands that came to our town, Bangi town, it could be operatic Chinese music, it could be Indian music in the estates, where they use tabla and sitars, and also Western music playing the top 10 of that at time, you see. Not much actually. At that time, there wasn't much exposure to live bands, you know, unfortunately.
English songs that were popular here were basically country. We were listening to people like Roy Rogers, Gino Tree, the Yellow Rose of Texas, you know, that kind of cowboy-based songs, which were also kind of a movie-related. And we were not so much exposed to other forms of music. And even in the West, the popular music was just beginning to take shape with Bill Haley and his Comets. And that was my first experience with rock and roll in '57.
Johnny Lyon came down. I saw Johnny Lyon in Chinoo Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, in KL. And he used to play with this Indonesian group called Blue Diamonds. Johnny Lyon and the Blue Diamonds, oh my gosh, it was too much for me with all those electric guitars and drum set. No keyboards, I remember, just 3 guitars, bass, rhythm and lead and drums.
That was the thing that sort of triggered off a kind of it did something to the young mind, you know. And 1957, I remember we were watching this Rock Around the Clock in Rex Theatre, and everybody was banging the chairs, and some chairs were broken also. Looking back now, I think that's when this, like later on, we had Woodstock and, you know, all these kind of phenomena. It would mean a milestone in our history. And music-wise, the group that existed as amateur groups, there was no bass guitar, so we used a skiffle bass. We used like a T box and with a string. It's a parachute string, and you put it, goes boom, 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 boom. It's not perfect pitch, but it gave a sense of bass.
For us to listen to music, local and international, there's only one way. That was the radio or the turntable, record player. Even 1957, most of the record players were gramophones, the one you wind up, playing the 78 RPM records. These are vinyl records. Elvis, this is one of our favorites at that time, Elvis. And at the same time, his competition was Mr. Cliff Richard. I used to listen to a lot of him, and these two guys were like the yin and yang of the era. That's our P. Ramlee, you know, and his records sell the highest selling records in Malaysia are P. Ramlee record next to the Beatles. Johnny Tillipson. Nice to listen to. These guys, they usually use the same chord. If it is in the key of C, they'll use C, A minor, F and G or G7. You know, there's a sort of rotation chord. They sound very much similar to Cliff Richard or Elvis. You know, they played rumbas, 4/4 time. Usually they played 4/4 time. When I compare the decades of listening to the music of that time till now, I find that the music of the 50s were it's simple. It's a 3-chord stuff, but it's more live, not very complicated, very simple instrumentation, very nice. I had to get records from England, America. My uncles used to bring, their friends used to bring records from America, and then I knew about this black musician like Otis Redding. You know, Otis Redding, the Soul Man, and B.B. King, blues people, Lightning Hopkins, and all 50s, 40s. You know, that's what most Malaysians miss. I was really shocked to hear that kind of music, you know, the 12-bar blues, which I could not understand, but now I do. It's very simple and very nice, and still very nice to listen to after all these years.